What's up, everybody, and welcome back. Coach Ken from Giving It a Try. Another episode of the podcast today, and it's going to be a special, session today. We're going to recap the Long Island Marathon weekend. There was a 5K on Friday night. I believe the 10K was Saturday, and then half marathon and marathon kicked off on Sunday. A lot to unpack here. First, I want to welcome everybody back. I want to thank you for all the support as usual. Again, if you're tuning in and you're watching me on the video, you're on YouTube, so please like and subscribe, comment on the video if you find any of it interesting or have any questions. Or remember, you can search for this content, the long form podcast content, on basically any of the major streaming. We have, I know we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all that. So, and if there's something that you want it on that you don't or can't find it on, just let me know. You just got to search Giving It a Try, and you can always hit Giving It a Try.com to find all the links to everything on there. And again, welcome back. And again, special recap today. Long Island Marathon. Why this is important is it's got a long history of this event. It was taken over by Race Awesome a few years back. There was a course change on it. I did the half marathon on the old course and have now done the half marathon and marathon a few times on the newer course over the last few years. First, I just want to give a big shout out to Race Awesome, the race director, Corey Roberts. He puts on exceptional events. He really makes even the smallest 5K up to his marathon events, which he has the Long Island Marathon and the Suffolk Marathon in the fall, as well as he is the race director for the Jones Beach 70.3 half Ironman. He is just it's just a saint. Just getting out there and putting on these events, it really gives you this big feel of, especially for people that have trained very hard up for these events. He makes your day feel really special, all the way from the expo, all the way up to the finish line. Just, start to finish, his staff and everybody, they just every year, every event gets better and better and better. And you really do get what you pay for with his events. So congratulations on another successful big race weekend for the Race Awesome team. This is also a very good event for the locals here on Long Island because there's a very big endurance community, especially if you're listening from abroad here, you're not a local. But this brings together just so many different teams, so many different athletes. It's like a good big season opener for a lot of people, whether they're doing an early season half marathon or marathon. A good test of fitness to see kind of where you're at coming off of the winter and the spring season of training. And as well, it's just, the vibe there at the start finish line. It's really awesome. You can hang out there, food trucks, music, and really just hang out. And it really is a big supported event and really has some awesome finish line feels there with the people out there supporting everybody. For myself and my coached athletes, this has been good because we've had a good amount of people do this event over the last couple years now. And it's just fun because, again, it's a test of fitness. It's good because it's maybe testing some past results if you're repeating the course on and against yourself to see how you fare on a course, that the same course year after year. Weather's been pretty good the last few years, pretty even, so we've been able to compare a lot of these stats and performances to kind of see where you're starting the year at. So that's another great reason for that. And a shout out to the coached athletes because they really just amazing this weekend. We had one of my athletes, Masters level athletes, I believe she's 48 years old. She's been in this endurance game for a very long time. Suffered a very bad injury years back and, rebounded after that. I've been working with her for the last couple years, and she just ran her fastest half marathon in several years. And to do that at 48 years old, showing that age is just a number, and that list keeps going down there. I also had another athlete who has done 70.3 over the last 2 years, just got into this sport. He's in his 60s, and again, just PR'd a half marathon. Ran fast than all of his 70.3 half marathons and all the paces he hit in training. Hit the pacing plan, knocked it out of the park. He actually PR'd every metric there on his athlete profile from 5K, 10K, 5 miler, 10 miler, 10, all the way up to the half marathon distance. So he set some new benchmarks and some new standards for himself. Also had another female coached athlete who did this last year, had a great result. She was just getting into this endurance world and her half Ironman journey last year. Suffered a terrible ankle injury in November at a trail race. I had to take some time off and recuperate. So she really was, this is, this time of the year for her is recovery back at it season, and but she still pulled off a PR, simply amazing, and had some other athletes with some top performances, which was phenomenal. So congratulations to all of you. You really, the hard work is really showing, uh, is really paying off. But it's not really just the hard work; it's the smart work, and that's really the basis of this whole the second half of this episode. After we talk about the race for a little bit, is if you're interested in how numbers line up, the coaching side of things, uh, how you can't outrun numbers. Like, and I'll give you some examples of that. And I have, I've been collecting data. That's kind of where I've been the last few months is collecting data, pushing my limits, really testing myself with the numbers. Because what I do and work on the coaching side of things, I treat myself as a coached athlete as well, and filter all of that down then into the athletes that I do coach, and why that's important is, we'll get into that. But first, let's talk about the course. This is a really fun course. It's a fast course, pretty flat for the most part. There's really no big climbs. There's a couple, we got to go over, like a little overpass and things like that, but a very just gradual, slight incline and then down. But it's a very flat course, fast course, a lot of ins and outs, turns, but, and some people kind of, they question that ones that have done the old course, because it used to be, you went all the way out and back on one of like the parkways here on Long Island. But what I like about this is it's very spectator friendly. I mean, you can be in a very short vicinity as a spectator and also see the racers on their loop, one loop for the half, two loops for the full. So just even on the half, like you can see them probably about 4 times and then meet them at the finish line. So it's pretty cool that you see that. And it's just because of the amount of turns. It's only, again, one loop of the course for the half marathon, so you're not doing any other loops, but it's just a lot of ins and outs through roads. So you get to see a lot of the athletes on, as you go out, they're running it. So you can, if you're racing and kind of know of some locals and where they're at, like you can gauge yourself off of them by seeing how far ahead or how far behind you are, and just kind of, it's good because if you know a lot of people out there, you're also given high fives and encouragement along the way, which is, again, is really awesome. So for me, I like the course as a half marathon course. I did it as the marathon last year, the 2 loops. It gets a little lonely once you get to that turn where it's the right turn for the finish for the half marathon and you realize you got a whole nother half marathon to go. The course does thin out a little bit depending where your pacing lands you. But all in all, again, it's a very spectator friendly course. The course does play out rather fast, and there's really, you don't get too bored out there. So I like it. For me, I think it's a good choice. It keeps everything nice and contained in a smaller geographical area instead of having to put your resources way out and about. So logistically, for the race director and the athletes, I think it's really awesome. Parking is just super easy in the morning. Everything's right there. You can park right near the start line, walk, and be there right away in the morning. So logistically, super awesome event. Seriously, jump on board and get it done, and have fun with it. Outside of that, great swag, like nice hat when we finished. You got a nice tumbler. Like I wasn't expecting to get any of that. Nice big medal. Corey's always great with his finisher stuff. And all in all, again, from the beginning when you sign up until the finish line and you leave the park for the day, you're treated really well, and they do really take care of you there as the race director. But let's get into the meat and potatoes here. If you've been listening on here, you've seen some videos over the past month or two. I myself have been pushing my limits for where my fitness is at right now to see where I stand at certain distances. Unfortunately, I just missed my 50K PR because I was sick for that race. It is what it is. I had really fun putting in a lot of the longer efforts over this past trail running season for myself, which usually starts late fall and then ends in the early spring. Had some awesome training out there with my, some new training partners this year. Really pushed ourselves in some fun events, and but mixed into that, because when I, build up my running volume, fitness increases. If you want to get better running, you got to run. So that this time of year, my running volume is the highest that it usually is for the year. So I like to sprinkle in some shorter events just to see where my fitness is at leading into the next part of my journey for the year, which is triathlon, shorter course road racing, local park runs, summer run series, 5Ks, 5 milers, things like that. And I like collecting data because I think it's very important as a coach to get this data in and have accurate data, knowing, that my data is super accurate since I started running. I really make sure that all my devices are always playing nice with each other, making sure that there's no anomalies in the stuff as it comes in. And why that's important, if you're trying to um, get to your true potential of where you're at, you kind of really need to have that. I mean, you could just wing it and go out there and just send it and see how long you hold on for, but you'll find out shortly that that's not a very good idea, not a very smart idea. So for myself from the beginning, I've always paced myself pretty good. Pretty a hard, comfortable pace of my races, kind of achievable goals, just kind of setting the standard, pushing the envelope, pushing the, getting closer to the field goal posts, and just kind of seeing where we're at. But for myself, one of my big things was I love the half marathon distance. For me, I really like the 70.3 half Ironman triathlon distance. Naturally, that finishes in a half marathon. So I like the half marathon distance. I've run many half marathons, whether they're in 70.3s or road racing. So I have a lot of data and a lot of history behind that. So for myself, I started back in 2017 at the Suffolk Half Marathon. And I just came in under 2 hours on that. It was a 1:56:39. So I believe that was around about an 8:50 pace. The important thing about that was the first time I hit that distance. So I hurt that day. Like, it sucked. So that's part of the journey as well, is not that you're going to get better times, but you'll feel better doing these events. Like, there is an acclimation that your body must make. So that's why I tell everybody, when you're going for these mid-long course type distances for the first time, like, I actually just had a recent athlete joined on. They just did their first marathon this past weekend at the marathon event. Just set a standard. Just go out there and finish. Just, you can push a little bit if you feel good at the end, but like, you just want to have a good experience, because you don't want to bonk so hard that you don't enjoy it. Then you get a little demoralized. You get down in the gutter, and you just don't want to do it anymore. That's not why we're doing this. We want to have fun. We want to push ourselves, but we want to have fun. So again, that sustainable and longevity approach to this would be to just set the standard, and see how we go. So back 2017, I have some notable half marathons that I pulled out that are very similar courses, testing type events that I can use to compare. So again, 2017, that was a 1:56:39. 2019, I did the Nassau course, and that was I can't even read what I wrote down right there. It was a 7:46 pace. I think it was a 1:40. I could be lying on that one. But 2022, went back to Nassau, 1:32. I remember that race very vividly. I was very fit that year. I was doing a lot of 70.3, so I had a high level of fitness that I was training a lot. Like, that actually came off of I believe 2021 was my Ironman year. So I was still holding a lot of fitness from the year before. Did New York City Marathon, I believe, in 2021 at the end of the year. So again, I had a lot of fitness leading into the off season and held on to that. Had a really awesome, outstanding run for that year for the half marathon, 1:32:14 at 7:03 pace. The following year in May, we did the Brooklyn half, got a PR of 1:31:39 at 7 minutes per pace. So again, I'm just chipping away. Like, I'll set a new goal each time. You can't inevitably just slam off 10 minutes, 5 minutes at a time at this distance as you keep going, because it percentage wise of that race, it's very hard to do. So that was 2023 in Brooklyn. And then I don't even believe I actually did a true half last year. I'd have to look through this, but I pulled out, stepping into this year, because I had that Brooklyn time of 1:30:139. I said the next standard for me is to break that barrier of 1:30 in the half marathon. So I set out in between my 50Ks this year. I went to Arizona in February for the Black Canyon run. And then I had the Heckscher 13.1, a very flat, loopy half marathon course to kind of see where I'm at. Did shore to shore 50K. Again, that was a race I did while I was sick a few weeks back. And then I would have this attempt at the Nassau 13.1. I actually wasn't going to shoot for the 1:30 at that Heckscher race. I believe it was in March. But the day was just lining up. I felt good that week. So sometimes you got to just kind of reevaluate and say, well, if I feel good, like, let's see where we're at with that. that Heckscher official time was 1:30:33. So again, getting closer. It was a PR for the 13.1 standalone distance. This past weekend, we'll get into the breakdown of what we did, but that Heckscher run felt really good. It was a good push. I left there saying like that was probably 95+% of my ability right now at that distance. As the next few weeks went by, prepped for the Shorter Shore 50K. Was not a good week just because of being sick, and then racing on the back end of being sick kind of threw me in a gutter for a week. And then I only had this past week, last week, to get ready really for the 13.1. And to me, it was all about just resting the body. Don't push it. Did 1 or 2 prep sessions earlier in the week, which might have been a little too close to race day. But I just need to get that snap back in my legs to see where I was at, and make sure that this was even a viable option for that point to head out there. Now let's fast forward now to some data talk on why this is all important. I'm not here to talk about my times. This correlates to the athletes I have that run in the 2 hours, close to 3 hours. I still use all the same data sets and data points, which you'll see, to guesstimate and predict their race times and give them pacing plans. When it's a important race for them and they're looking to push it, we set up a pacing plan. I mean, we can even still set up a pacing plan if this is just a race they want to do just to go have a good training day. That kind of maybe keeps them a little more conservative so they're not over pushing it. It's not going to affect their training that they have coming up, because maybe they're training for a much bigger event and they don't want to have to take a week of taper and a week of recovery afterwards to really get back at it. But this is for like when we're trying to unlock potential to push the envelope a little bit and see where you're at. So let's start diving into some of the data here. You can't just go out and do it. It's like I had somebody say after the first the Heckscher race in February or March, whenever it was, when I said, I was shooting for 130, they're like, oh, you can easily run 130. There's nothing easy about it. If your numbers and your data point, which we're going to talk about, do not correlate to easily breaking 130, it's not easy. And you need kind of all the stars to align to even get close to that. You can't just go do it. Like right now, I can't just go qualify for Boston or attempt to. Like, I am not there. There's no way. And I've seen people attempt this where I've seen their race results and they're like, I have a marathon coming up. I'm gonna shoot for Boston. I'm just gonna go out there at the pace I need to do and see how long I can hold on for. It's just not going to work. I'm sorry. You cannot completely outrun. Like, there's a majority on either side of the numbers. Like, maybe you gained a little more fitness than the last time we calculated your numbers. But if it's so far on the other side, or you're not going to be able to outrun that. You physiologically cannot. So that's why it's important to have accurate data. And that's when I tell my athletes all the time, if we want to go by heart rate and see what your heart rate did on an event or training, it really needs to be from an external device. I use a chest strap all the time for all my runs, all my bikes. And then, the swimming, I don't really go too crazy with it, but the biking and the running, absolutely. I wear that chest strap all the time. And now I know that bothers some people sometimes. They've tried a few different devices, but they have armbands now that are just as accurate as that. It's just the wrist sensor, while good, it's not consistent. Sometimes it'll show elevated heart rate when it really wasn't. It'll show spikes. I'll even see graphs where it's just kind of showing steady, say 140, all of a sudden 160. Like, your heart rate doesn't change that quickly. So when I see this big zip up in the graph, I know right away that, like, I don't even know where was it accurate? Was it accurate at 140 or was it accurate when it finally clicked in at 160? Depending how tight you put your watch, if you take it on and off a lot, if you put it on a different like tightness, or depending how dirty the sensor kind of gets under there, or how dirty your skin is, how salty it is there water in between it, So there's a lot of inconsistencies that happen with that. So like I tell you, if you want to start bringing in the accurate data so we can accurately predict what your body's going to do at different heart rates using heart rate, then we'll definitely have to do that. A backup to that, if we're not running technical courses, if we're running pretty flat terrain all the time, flat courses, can be pace. And I've been using that a little bit more with the athletes just because I can't get accurate heart rate data. And if I tell you to go out at something and your watch is going to read completely off, you're either going to hold back too much or push too hard because it wasn't getting the accurate data. So pace, we can do testing for that, and I've made plenty of videos for that for my coach athletes. But I like to do a 5K test or 20-minute test, get a lot of good data, ask you what your RPE was. Was this a strong effort? Was this a hard 5K? If you can give me if an athlete can give me an honest 5K effort, and I usually don't do this right away with newer runners. If you're a newer or back to running from an injury, we have to have a period of consistency, which we don't want to get hurt or do anything. And we also just want you to be able to put in a good effort. So at some point, I'm going to ask you to do, a 5K test and pull a lot of data out of that. And we'll repeat this test as I see numbers change, but it doesn't have to be too frequent. That's why I often like to do these 5Ks throughout the year, because it gives me really good, valuable data to come back and see if I'm progressing, if I'm falling off on fitness, or maybe holding too much fatigue. So we'll get a 5K test out of that, and then I'll pull data out. I won't go into too crazy on this on how I pull the data out, but I do use the 80-20 method and the 80-20 coaching philosophies to use all the calculators and pull data out and figure out where we're at. But the importance that we need to know out of pulling that data, we get a lot of good data on our zone 1, zone 2. The easy and very easy, moderate, where 80% of our training needs to be. I did a little bit podcast ago about the 80-20 and that training philosophy and why I use it and why it's important to me. So check that out if you want to find more out about this. That's that's like the biggest thing we pull out of it, because a lot of people have to slow down sometimes. They're not doing the work that they need to do at these intensities. But then it's very good for race pace efforts and understanding where we need to be for pacing. Because what happens is I put all this stuff out there. The 7-zone system for 80-20. I break your heart rate down, your pace values down. Some of the watches now have running power. I don't like to go by that. I'll briefly touch on power in a little bit, but I use the Stride power meter on my foot. I've been using that for years. I'm kind of grandfathered in. I don't have to pay for the subscription on it because it is a paid service now. And I don't even train by power, but I use power as another metric after my big events or races to be able to see what the effort was out there due to some other circumstances. And hopefully we'll touch on based on that if we have some time. But what I pull out of all that is the biggest things is your lactate heart rate, base zones off of that, and your threshold pace for running. What that important is, let's talk about threshold and why it's important and why those numbers are very important to find. I'm going to take the literal definition of threshold and then we'll break it down into more of the layman's terms. But threshold running involves running at a pace where lactic acid begins to accumulate faster than your body can remove it, causing a noticeable increase in difficulty. This pace is typically around your half marathon or 10K race pace. It's a challenging effort, but sustainable for a period, often used to improve endurance and speed. So that's when you hear people say, I do threshold work, threshold training, threshold intervals. You're working in and around that intensity to build your resilience towards this lactic acid buildup. But once we have these numbers set from a recent test, and you go try and run faster than that for a very prolonged period of time, it's not really going to happen and it's not going to work too well. Out of my testing and all my racing and data, I've found that when I have my threshold values, that's really the max that I can withstand for probably 45 minutes to an hour. Past that, your body just begins to slow down. You don't have the turnover. The lactic acid is building up and the running just becomes more difficult. And again, that could be by heart rate or it could be by pace values. With the testing and evaluation that I do for my athletes, a few years back, I had won at a local event a raffle for a lab evaluated threshold test. And what that was running on a treadmill, increasing the intensity over a period of time, hooked up to an oxygen mask, taking my actual lactate values from my ear off blood samples. So after that, he broke the data down, the doctor, and said, this is what your threshold level is. This is your threshold pace value. This is when your lactate and lactic acid in your body builds up too quickly to remove. And the greatest part was it was very, very close to my field testing that I was doing. So what that reiterated to me was we can get a lot out of this without going to a lab. We can do a lot of this on the field, and it was good to back that up, like the true science behind it, the true lab evaluated versions of these tests with what I was doing and what I was working with my coached athletes. That really like lit me forward on all this. The fire was to continue with this real importance of this data collection, especially for the athletes that are looking to perform well race after race and kind of push that envelope. So looking now at these past two races, we'll get in and break down why this is important. And again, this is for the person that is looking to see what their real limit is with their potential for where their fitness is right now. You want to go out and complete races, kind of like party pace day, not really looking to be at that limit. Awesome. Conservative pace values. You'll have an awesome day. You'll still be able to have an awesome time. Like me going for sub 130 is definitely much harder than if I was just going to pace myself even for 135, 137. Like that's going to be a lot more comfortable. Once I'm starting to get towards where this limit is, that's when it's becoming hard. I'm still a little conservative when I'm out there as far as there's no need to have gone out on any of these races, pushed way beyond what I'm really capable of to hope to have that one magical day when you can just be on the other side of the numbers. Because the majority of the time you're going to crash, bonk, hit a wall, and you're just going to, your race is just going to suck at the end. I like to have strong finishes and, finish the day still feeling well. I don't want to get hurt. I want to continue on. So to me, it's not worth that little extra squeeze of the lemon if it's just not there that day. So I'm going to go through my numbers now because it's the easiest to talk about. Is last time I tested and evaluated my threshold paces was about in December. Should I have done it since then? Yeah, but again, I'm in that vicinity, and I'm actually doing a 5K this weekend coming up for new values and for the springtime for my next training block and my next set of races. But let's just break it down. So going into this past training block, these past 3 to 4 months, I had a threshold value of 639 and a lactate heart rate value of 170. So what that tells me is basically I should be able to run about an hour at the limit. Basically, this is my max potential right now. My heart rate's probably going to reach about 170, right at that range. And I'm not really going to be able to average more than 639. What's really fun and important about this is back in January now, I did a 10 miler, which I had done a video on, a local 10 miler. I've done it numerous times before, I think 5 years now, and I've slightly PR'd every year. What was different about this year was it was like 98% of what I had that day. It really was an awesome day. Everything felt good from start to finish on that run. It was a 10 miler. I was able to do it in 106.59, just over that hour mark that I was just telling you about with this threshold. My average pace for that run was a 640. My threshold pace going into that was set as a 639. As well, my max heart rate was 177, average 165. So split the middle. We're probably at 170 for quite a period of time. That was my lactate heart rate level. So a good 10-mile effort. Like, everything lined up. And I didn't really look at this until I got back. And I said, wow, I basically performed just at about an hour, just over an hour at where I had my basically max hour effort set at. And again, this is something that has starting running back in 2017. This is an 8-year journey of consistency. I've never taken a big break from training. I've never, knock on wood, taken a break because of injury. So this is progressed of 8 years. So if you're just getting into the sport, or it's your second season, or we've just started working together because you just started with endurance, this is big picture stuff. This is down the road. This is like really trying to get everything out of what you need to do. Because what you need to do from the beginning is have good races, set a standard at a distance, continue to chip away like I did over the past how many years when we talked about the 13.1 results. You don't need to be at your limit the first time you step up to the start line, or the second time, or the fifth time. Like, you're just slowly getting there, getting comfortable being uncomfortable with being at these paces. Because I'll tell you, it sucks out there. This past weekend, these past two 13.1s, while I enjoy it because I enjoy endurance and I enjoy running, for that hour and a half, it sucks. The first few miles, not bad. I like to ease into them a little more conservative pace. But when it's time to get down to business now and hit these paces, it's there. It's at the borderline. It's at the limit. It now becomes a mind game. Like, you have to tell your body you're capable of doing this. You'll be fine for an hour. You have to hold on to this for the next half hour. These next 3 miles are very important. You need to hit your paces. And it's your mind fighting with your body, because your body is at that point saying, like, nope, like, this is what I have. And it's very easy, though, for the mind to want to shut the body down before it even gets to that point. People handle hard different. And I see that with the coached athletes. There's certain people that can dig a little bit more in these races. Then there's people who, when it gets a little hard, they just doubt themselves and they pull back way before they're even near their potential. So it doesn't matter even if I put a pacing plan together for you that is really accurate for what you should be able to do. It's also how you handle that and how you handle the suck while you're in there. Again, also the outside factors. How did we show up to that race? Did we taper properly? Did we have some good night's sleep? Did we eat and hydrate properly up to that? So there are other things on the outside of that. But this is if everything, all the talk that we're doing now is as if leading up to race day, you did everything, controlled the controllables to the best of your ability. And then now we have the numbers to play with. Because the numbers really, they're not going to mean much if you didn't really eat right the night before the race, or you didn't hydrate properly, or you didn't bring any fuel to your race. So those are completely different topics on there. But this is if we controlled all the controllables and we got out there and got it done. So this journey started back in January, again, with that 10-mile race, when I said, wow, I'm right on there. So now let's see what we're capable of at this 13.1 distance with these races coming up. Like, it's going to be borderline to see where we're at with that. Now, the fun part is there's devices out there that can predict your values, predict your 5K time, your 10K time, your half marathon time. It can either be on your Garmin watch, it could be on Strava. The Stride Running Pod app also has a way to do that. So diving into that, I was able to look at a few things recently in this time frame now, from this 10-miler up to these past two 13.1s. Are these accurate? Now let's look at the prediction for, let's look at Strava. Strava's predictions for myself had a prediction of a half marathon time. Says you should be able to possibly do it in 1:28:43 at a 6:46 pace. Garmin had me predicted to be able to run a half marathon at 1:28:56 at a 6:47 pace. And my Stride Running Pod had me at a 1:30:06 with plus or minus. It gives you a plus or minus 1 minute 48 seconds based on some variables. And now that could, which I like. So out of those and out of the ones in the past, I've found that my Stride Running Pod actually gives me the most accurate predictions of my times. I've been pretty consistent with my 5K efforts over the past season or two, where they're falling in the low 19 to 1935 range. The good part about that is the Stride Running Pod actually has me at a 1926 prediction for a 5K, plus or minus 23 seconds. Strava has me at 1913, and Garmin has me at a 1929. So they're all pretty accurate. But it comes down to a matter of which one over these past distances I feel I can trust the most. And to me, that's going to be my Stride Running Pod. Just because I like that it gives that plus or minus on there. And as I was hitting these 5K times, that seems to be the one that was the closest. Now, that's doing a bunch of calculations in the background as well, based off of how long you've been running at what these threshold values are. And what's important is your zones also need to be set up properly in your devices. I use Training Peaks for myself and my coached athletes. I do all the zones in there. I really don't care what your Garmin says. I look at Training Peaks. So at the end of your run, I look at what I have set up zone-wise in Training Peaks. That's going to differ from your Garmin watch. It's on you, and I'll send that to my coached athletes afterwards as how it correlates and what you need to adjust in your Garmin if you want to look at things in your Garmin. But for myself, I know and understand where my zones are in Training Peaks, so I'll just make sure that I'm in those zones when I'm out there running and doing what I need to do. But here we go. Talking about now 13.1. When I did the Heckscher 13.1 about 6 weeks ago, I came very close to the 130.33. And the interesting part about that, which I'll pull up some of the data right now on that, was, again, we talked about what my threshold values were for that at that time. Just pulling it up right here. That was actually March 29th, so actually wasn't too long ago. But was able to run at 6:51 pace, heart rate, mostly towards the end because that's when it was higher, was 166, average 176, highest. And again, that's right near that where that threshold is. So it just can't outrun the numbers. That's what I'm trying to get at here is when you set this up, and why this is important is I have a nice graph I send my coached athletes. It's a race pace zone chart. And it gives you all the zones, zone 1, 2, all the 7 zones that 80/20 uses and that I use with my athletes. And what you'll see is the 5K zone is above your threshold. You can run faster than what your threshold is for 5K. So when I go out this weekend and I'm not even going to look at my watch. It's going to be a true test. I'm just going to go full gas from start to finish. Hopefully, again, get another sub 20 time and see where I don't want to be limited by looking at my watch and going, oh crap, I'm running too fast right now. Because for 20 minutes, I should, in theory, be able to run faster than what my threshold value is. So that's going to be above threshold. You're going to be able to do that. Now, as you slide down, the 10K, again, depending how fast or you can do a 10K in, for myself, I'm probably going to be in that low 40 range. That's still less than an hour. So it's going to be just about at threshold, maybe a little bit quicker. Again, I did 10 miles basically at my threshold pace. So if I'm looking at my 10K time, I would probably say I should be able to do it just a little bit faster than that and finish within that about 41-minute mark there. Now, once we start to getting to half marathon, this is going longer than an hour. The scale starts to slide a little bit. You're going to start to now be, and there's a range, which I like about this chart, is it gives you a little broad of a range from novice to veteran. What's important with that, again, is if you're just going out there to set a standard, you're going out there to have race line experience and continue chipping away, getting closer to your potential, you're going to start at that novice end and then slowly start working up the percentage of where you're at for your pacing until you get to basically the veteran side, which is almost where I've been landing the last couple races at the half marathon distance, because you just physically can't get past that barrier. Your body will not allow you to run past where your fitness standard is right now. You just can't do that. If you could do that, we'd all be out there on the podium. Does that make sense? And now even the marathon distance slides even more. This is a much longer event. For myself, I'm probably in that 320 range right now. That's a 3+ hour event for myself. So this is going to slide down into definitely below threshold. My threshold's at 6:39 right now, and I was going to go train for a marathon. Maybe somewhere in the mid 7s, 7:30, 7:40 pace, just to have that big buffer so I'm not producing more lactic acid than I wanted. But if I wanted to go qualify for Boston, and I don't have the number right now for my age, but if I wanted to do that, it's probably going to be faster than threshold. There's no way I'm holding that for 3 hours. It's just not going to happen. I need to move the needle more. I need to set up my training and push my 5K time faster. My threshold value needs to get faster. My threshold heart rate might stay there, at the same range, which that people notice that when they test time and time again, is their heart rate may not change, but they're getting faster at the same heart rate. So they are moving the pendulum down of what they're able to do pace wise at that same heart rate level. And that's just building fitness. That's aerobic capacity building over time. What's good for the multi-sport athletes is that chart also correlates now to the run at the end of a sprint, an Olympic, a half Ironman, and an Ironman distance. So even though there's a 5K at the end of a sprint, a 10K at the end of an Olympic, 13.1 at the end of a half Ironman, and a full marathon at the end of the Ironman, you may think that you can do these events at the same level you would at a standalone, the same percentage of your values that we found when we tested. But they bring those down another click more conservative, because you're going to have hours of fatigue on some of these events already under your legs at that point. Fueling issues. So again, your body's tired. You probably maybe on the bike produced a little bit of lactic acid that you weren't able to clear because you went a little too hard or it was a hilly course. So it does slide down a little bit. The takeaway on that is, even if my PR recently was a 1:30:30 on the half Ironman. On the half marathon. And now I go into a half Ironman training block. Doesn't mean I'm going to shoot for a 1:30:30 on that half marathon at the end of the half Ironman. It's going to slide a little bit. Maybe I'll do a 1:33, 1:34. And that's kind of where some of my best have fallen in the past couple of years. So again, it's all making sense. It's all falling into the same, this is not stuff we're just making up as coaches here. This is, if a coach is really dialed into data and understanding these percentages and that correlates to these race distances, that's how, and I'll say it for myself right now, I'll put myself on a little bit of a pedestal for this, is why when we step up to big race weekends and I have athletes that are actually like putting the trust in me and the process, why they're having good results and why they're having good, successful race days, why they're slowly PRing and continuing to progress forward in these events, why they're not completely bonking during their races, because we're setting goals that I know they're going to be able to hit or should be able to hit if all the controllables are controlled in the grand scheme of things. So going to this past weekend, was just not feeling overly motivated, prepped, and primed. I was still going to give it the best effort I could to try and hit that 1:30 again on a true half marathon course. That was one loop that had mile markers, and I can set on my pacing plan where I need to be at each mile marker and where my watch was going to be, and hammer that down. So for myself, was slated to, I put a little bit of a buffer in there. I was paced out to run a 1:29:42, and that would have brought me at a 6:51 pace overall. Starting at a 7-minute per mile pace for the first couple, progressing 6:56, a couple miles at 6:51, a few miles at 6:47, finishing at 6:43. Now looking at that though, that 6:43 number that I need to pull off at the turn of the hour is very close to what my threshold value was set at, 6:39. So it's one of those, where do we land with this? You really got to be at your peak on every level to be able to hit this on race day. The good part is, stepping into this attempt, I had two friends lined up. One that I knew she was going to try and shoot for a 1:30. She was going to hold on as best she could. And also had another local teammate that I saw on there where he said, I'm shooting for 1:30 and that's going to be my PR. And he's been training for an Ironman. So I was like, this guy's fit. Let's see what we can do. So I told him what my pacing plan was. He said we would try and knock it out best we can. And we went out. We started hitting it. 6:53, first mile, 6:49, 6:55. So there was a little buffer in there, but felt good the first. I knew the first 10K or so was going to do pretty good. 6:49, 6:45, 6:49. So I was adding a little bit of time on my side for the first 10K. But inevitably at mile 4 or 5, as my watch started to buzz, it wasn't exactly at the mile marker. When I looked at the GPX file on this course and my past half marathon on the same course, they measured out at 13.3 miles. So it is just a twinge little more than a 13.1. And I knew that was going to be a big factor, because even that extra zero point 0.1 miles is, I think, equates to 30 seconds. So even if you're at 129.50 and you have to have that extra 30 seconds, it's going to bump you above it. You know, it's very hard to hit these numbers once you're getting down there in pace. But held strong, pretty good first 8 miles or so. And again, we're getting close to that 55-minute mark now. We're getting close to that hour. My average pace was within like that 10 seconds of threshold value right there. So we were getting close. The guy I was running with, he was hammering. He just kept steady from mile 8 to the finish. I saw him up ahead. He just kept gaining a couple seconds every mile. So he was doing his thing. But I noticed that my legs just started to get a little heavy at mile 8, and we started just clicking off then a little slower than 7. So to me, what that was telling me was fatigue was setting in, lactic acid was building. Was hitting like 704, 709, 711, 704, and just felt good to get to that last mile. I didn't want to blow up. I said, if I still hold this, I'll get a course PR. I'll still probably be within that 131 range. I knew the 130 wasn't going to happen at that point. But it's a matter of, at that point, do you stick in the game, grind it out to get the best finish you can for the day, or do you just pull back and let the day be, and it is what it is? But no way in hell, if I'm out there on the race course, we're going to try and get the best effort that we can for the day, given the circumstances. And we hammered down. Final mile was a 6:51 with a final kick after that 13 mile at 6:10. You didn't have the usual kick for the last mile that I could get. So for me, and what I tell people is, you paced your day pretty well or to your limit. If you get to that final mile, that final kick, that final little bit of distance, and you try and push the gas pedal and there's really no gas left, and you just kind of finish strong but not overly strong, it's the underwhelming kick at the end. It means that basically you just didn't have anything left in the tank, which is good, because all of a sudden, if you had your last 2 miles or your best 2 miles in an attempt like this, maybe you had a little more in the tank while you're out there. Well, for me, this is, we finished in at about a 6:55 pace. Again, we were shooting for what would have been a 6:51 pace overall. So it was, again, just off, but that was probably 97.5 to 98% of what I had out there, without getting close to that 100%, where if you tip too much on the other side, you'll start to fall and bonk pretty hard. So looking at it overall, where do we stand now? Super happy that I had a course PR, 13.1 PR overall early this year, checking the box for the year. That's awesome. I'll revisit this down the road. I have different plans for training right now, but what I also didn't do going into this was a true half marathon build plan for that pace. It was kind of like my A races were my 50Ks, and this was just some secondary stuff to see where I'm at right now. So the good part is I've pushed the envelope forward a little bit at this distance. It's not a failure. It's a PR. It's 2 PRs really, back to back, 2 races faster than any previous 13.1. But very consistent data now. I've now set a point to where I'm at, and now I will have to do due diligence in training and moving forward if I want to push that needle at that distance. But where I'm going to be right now is testing the 5K coming up. I might do a little recap on that as well, just to kind of show you the importance of things like that and the importance of 5Ks in general and how they correlate, and maybe we'll break the numbers down together. Then a little tiny break, and then it's time to get back into the multi-sport, get back into the biking, get back in the water. Open water swim times coming soon. I want to get back outside on the bike. I want to get more trainer rides in. So my run volume will come down a little bit. I'll be able to add in a little more intensity for the short course stuff, which is going to be fun. And then get back on the bike, build that bike volume, build some good swim volume, do some local races. 70.3 New York is on the books for September, 3rd time's a charm. Hopefully the weather cooperates, but it's a local race. I just love it, being able to see everybody, all the locals out there, and a few of the athletes that I coach doing it, and have a lot of data now. Summer run series, I'll be doing some of those runs. Those are some 5K 5 milers. So that's good testing as I'm going through this training plan for the half Ironman. And also be able to get out there and just train more unstructured for a little while. Be able to jump on some other people's group rides, some other people's runs, and just kind of start logging some miles with them without the stress of having to put all these big weeks up and these big trail runs. And so this is the time of year where my focus shifts a little bit. Stay along for the journey, stay along for the ride. Again, this is about the totality of it all, just letting you understand what goes on behind the scenes and why I say that data is important. If you're looking to reach what is your true potential in endurance sports, we have to have accurate data rolling in. If we're looking to just be out there, complete, not compete, and I'm saying against yourself, trying to better yourself, you're just looking to complete the races, have fun, build the wall of medals and the experiences out there, we can do that too. It doesn't have to be so, so structured and rigid, but we also, by going by the numbers, is the sustainable way to not get injured, to make sure that we are racing and training within our ability range and making sure that, we're hitting it pretty good out there. So for everybody, again, congratulations on a great Long Island Marathon weekend. Here we go, moving forward into spring and summer. A lot of things coming forward. So, and again, thank you all, because I actually did run into a few people out there in the course that recognized me from this YouTube channel, and that's really cool. I do this just to help people out and really just spread as much of the passion that I have for endurance sports out to everybody that I have. So for them to recognize me and say hello out there, that's pretty cool. So I'll see you all out there. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Thanks for tuning in. Keep balancing life 1 mile at a time. I'll catch you on the next one.